flat Earth things. That's something that you usually believe.
Does it matter?
Yes.
For what?
Well, I mean,
What's so important about that?
you have lots and lots of fans.
Does that affect them?
Indeed. Indeed.
Oh, okay.
For many flat earthers, not seeing is believing. Unable to perceive any curvature when they look at the horizon, they conclude that the Earth is flat. This is an argument from ignorance, whereby they can't accept what's been proven because they're simply unaware of the proof. But we explain the geometry and logic of why the Earth appears flat to him, that the radius of the planet he's standing on is so vast compared to his eye level above ground that the distance to the horizon and the arc within his field of view are insignificant by comparison. The ant has doubled down. Motivated reasoning has caused him to confuse significant height relative to the ground with significant height relative to the Earth, which is what really counts here. The top of the fence that is 1,000 times his height off the ground is still insignificantly greater than the radius of the Earth. Now that he knows better but he doesn't accept the facts, he's graduated to making an argument from personal incredulity, the I can't believe it's not butter school of geography. Even the smartest flat earther might remind the ant that there's little difference between the floor and the fence here, without appreciating the irony that they make the same cognitive error when they look out the window of an airplane. But I'll get to that later. Two of the primary reasons that flat earthers deny that which has been proven are that they either won't accept what they cannot see, or some deity that they have never seen has told them that it's flat. There is little point in reaching out to those for whom believing is knowing. But for those who are in the seeing is believing camp, the appearance of flatness is their rabbit in the Precambrian, the one ugly fact that destroys an otherwise beautiful theory, the showstopper that stands between denial and acceptance of that which has otherwise been proven beyond doubt. For those people, we need not prove that the Earth is spherical, because that has been done to death. But rather, we need to remove the blockage that prevents them from accepting that it is. The purpose of this video is therefore not to prove that the Earth is an oblate spheroid, but to show how it can be despite appearances. As this video is all about perception, we need to establish a way of simulating the views from different heights. Demonstrating this with physical models is difficult because of the scales involved. One must be able to represent both human field of view and planetary scale, a range of at least 3 orders of magnitude. For example, to simulate the viewpoint of a passenger plane flying at 10 kilometers high, you'd have to get within 1/3 of a millimeter of a soccer ball. A phone camera lens can get much closer than your eye, but this one still is fully 1 centimeter away from the ball. This is analogous to the height of the International Space Station, far above the point where curvature is easily apparent to the human eye anyways, and therefore starting from this point won't convince anybody who, considering their belief system, won't be getting aboard the ISS anytime soon. Unlike the soccer ball, computer modeling works at any scale, so I used AutoCAD to create a 1-to-1 scale virtual model that shows us much of what the physical soccer ball model couldn't. The software unbiasedly displays the image at whatever scale we choose and calculates all the measurements automatically, also known as WYSIWYG. In this model, the Earth is depicted by a 12,750 kilometer diameter circle on a 2D surface. By drawing a line from the viewpoint to the tangent point on the Earth's circle, we've established the location of the horizon and distance to it. By drawing a straight line through the Earth tangent point directly below the viewpoint and extending it along what we'll call the viewer's ground tangent plane to over the horizon line, we can easily measure the change in Earth's height at the plane as the Earth curves away from the viewer. We'll call this the drop. 2 types of views of the model will be displayed on your screen at the same time. 1. A cross-cut of the Earth and its fixtures, such as buildings and mountains, which are best shown in a side view section looking to the side of the viewer. And 2. Views to those fixtures from the viewpoint, looking forward down the sight line to a cone that surrounds the viewer, intersecting at the horizon line from a vertex at the Earth's center. As the Earth is spherical, its outline is the same no matter how you cut it through the center, and as both of these planes are at right angles to each other through a line that runs from the point in the middle of the viewer's horizon through the center of the Earth, a model showing one view can be co-opted to show the other view at the same time. Accordingly, in our model, we will use the Earth circle to represent both the cross-section through the Earth along the line of sight to the horizon and view towards the horizon line itself respectively. And as the human horizontal field of view is 120 degrees, the visible part of Earth's horizon will be at least 2.09 times the distance from the viewer. The 2.09 factor for distance versus visible horizon width works out very nicely for our model because the distance from the center of the screen to the right edge represents the distance to the horizon, and at the same time, the width of the screen represents how much of the horizon the viewer can see based on a 120 degree field of view. To address the real issue, perception, we will have another look at the credulous ant's worldview from 2 millimeters above the ground and describe the drop at the horizon in two ways, by comparing it to familiar objects that would fit into, first, the space between the viewer's ground tangent and the horizon at the drop point. Although these objects can get pretty big, they're seen from great distances, so this will be graphically shown by splitting the screen below the viewer's ground tangent and zooming in through binoculars to see it. In this case, the horizon is only 80 meters away and the drop is only 4 millimeters, or about the length of a grain of rice. Even the best binoculars couldn't see this much detail, but whatever. By comparison, typical construction standards for a flat floor allow a slope of up to 3 millimeters over 1.2 meters, which for a floor of over 80 meters long would be a drop of about 200 millimeters, or 50 times the size of the grain of rice. Second, as perception is really what matters here, this is the most important. We'll consider what would fit into the arc segment as seen at arm's length from the viewer. This is in the same way as the moon is one arc thumb, or the same size as your thumb when held at arm's length. This is where the rubber hits the road, because in all cases, the greater the size of this object, the greater the curvature and therefore the easier it would be to see. In the ant's case, the drop in the horizon height at the edges of his peripheral view is the same as the width of a human hair held on edge at our arm's length away from him. This explains why, although the Earth is round, from the ant's perspective, it's flatter than a well-built floor. For myriad reasons, the field of view across a perfectly level horizon represented by this model actually exaggerates the curvature that you would see. For example, squeezing a 120 degree field of view onto a computer screen, which typically only fills about 30 degrees of your field of view. There are a number of other considerations, some of which are listed here. But in the meantime, what this means is that if the modeled circular Earth still appears flat at the human accessible heights, even with the curvature exaggerated, then we surely have our proof of concept that the spheroid Earth would appear flat to us as we actually view the world. And with all that housekeeping out of the way, we begin. Standing on the ground is an average height person, Mrs. 1800, or 1.8 meters tall. To ensure she has the best chance of seeing curvature, we'll assume that she's in a desert next to a calm sea, so we'll put her in Dubai near the Burj Khalifa. After seeing how the model represents her view, we'll compare that to what the couple above her sees from their balcony. She can see about 4.8 kilometers, where the tangent of her sight line meets the horizon in all directions. This is only 0.03 or 3/10,000ths of the Earth's circumference, a 3/4 arc minute with a vertical drop of only 1.5 meters at the horizon line 4.8 kilometers away. In this case, the horizon is below her ground tangent by the height of a sitting person, or a flat earther whilst dragging his knuckles on the ground as he walks. This might seem like a lot, but keep in mind that it's over a distance of almost 5 kilometers, which to her would be roughly equivalent to the thickness of 3 dollar bills pinched together, held out to the edge of her peripheral vision at arm's length. To help appreciate this scale, we add some realism to the model and overlay the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, onto the horizon, as it would appear at that distance. At this scale, a person standing next to it is less than the height of a pixel, demonstrating why, when viewed standing on the beach and looking out over the open ocean, the viewer perceives the round Earth as flat. From the balcony above, where the couple's sight line is 5 meters above the ground, the Burj appears further away because we pushed it over 3 kilometers into the distance atop their horizon line. they still don't perceive any curvature because although the drop at the 8-kilometer distance is about the same as the height of a London double-decker bus, to them it is the same as holding a dime on edge after splitting it in half. As we've already brought the Burj Khalifa into our model, we will use its 558-meter-high observation deck as our next vantage point. From here, the viewer can see as far as 84.5 kilometers to the horizon. The curvature drop at the distance is the same as the height of the New World Trade Center Tower in New York, but as it is equivalent to the height of a pea held at arm's length, a height of a building at that distance is as difficult to see in this model as the Earth's curvature is from up here. Although the usual middle ground blockages and local variations in geography such as buildings, trees, and hills are eliminated at this height above featureless desert and a level gulf as far as the eye can see, background atmospheric disturbances come into play, with the water appearing to blend into the sky at the distance. This makes even measurable curvature much more difficult to perceive. At this height, every other object in the area falls under the sight line to the horizon, so I've moved Mount Everest, which is almost 9 kilometers high, onto the horizon halfway between Dubai and Iran to provide scale and give us something to look at. But of course, most flat earthers argue that if the Earth is round, the curvature would certainly be apparent from the highest point that most of us will ever get to, the 10-kilometer cruising altitude of a passenger jetliner. Before we consider the relative distances, we need to make an adjustment in our field of view assumptions. Typical passenger plane windows are narrow and deep, reducing the field of view from 120 degrees to about 90 degrees. We'll account for this by placing such a window in the model. At this height, the effects of Earth's curvature begin to show, though it depends on how perceptive you are, or how motivated your reasoning might be. Although Mount Everest would easily fit between the horizon line and the tangent at the point directly below you, if your view wasn't obstructed by the window, the drops in your periphery would be about the same as holding a professional pilot's flight wings pin at arm's length. But as no flat earther would have one of those, a quarter would do. Under the best of conditions, this could be detected by eyesight, but even if the passenger puts his face right up to the thick layers of refractive glass, he can see at best about 650 kilometers along the horizon, which is still 1.5% of the Earth's circumference, or 6 degrees of arc. But the layer-thick window is a cesspool of refraction. The depths of the window returns make it difficult to hold a proper straight edge to it, and there's often a wing blocking part of the view. At this point, the typical spheroid denier will argue that these are a string of special pleadings to excuse why he can't see what other people say that they can. But before we encourage him to use the convenient exit door to go stand on the wing and get a better view, he can always go visit the pilots to enjoy their full panorama of the horizon. I'm sure they'd be happy to accommodate him if he tells them why he's there, especially if he challenges their assertions that they can see the curvature, and even more so after he accuses them of being part of the conspiracy if they are unwilling to give him access because he can't bring a baseball bat-sized level into the cockpit for security reasons. Somewhere between the commercial jetliner and the International Space Station, which orbits at 400 kilometers high, curvature becomes much more obvious to even the most open-minded amongst us, as we've seen in countless pictures from the crew. Although the space station is still too close to the Earth to see the full 360 degrees of horizon from one viewpoint, the horizon is clear of most atmospheric effects, and it is far enough above the surface to not only see the horizon arc, but also see the Earth curve down and away from them in the distance. From up here, the curvature falls down from the tangent point by as much as the size of Washington State, and the drops at one's periphery appear about the same as a clenched fist at arm's length. It is unfortunate that the only people who ever get to perceive Earth curvature with such absolute clarity are those who never needed to be convinced of it in the first place. And here's the Moon, orbiting at about 400,000 kilometers away from the Earth, or 1,000 times higher than the International Space Station, just because seeing its size and distance to proper scale is a bit of a mind-bender. Almost half the Earth's surface can be seen from here, as can its entire circumference, and it appears round, and from more than one angle, because it's spherical, and not a disk. But is it just me, or does the Moon look flat from here?